And the fact that this is what I need to teach people about morality. I laugh at this constantly. Because this is the example of some of the best people that humanity has. We're in big trouble, folks. And that seems to be the case. Because I'm so far from perfect, it's laughable. But at least I have the courage to come out and say what's real and what's true and what's really going on with the sorcerers of this world, the occultists of this world that own people because they've given their minds away to them. But again, as I've said, it's more than just mind control. It's cowardice. Let's bring it right home. Members of my family. Apathetic, yes. Ignorant, oh, whoa. And that's really an understatement, to say the least. But you know what it really is about? Come on, people. Let's cut through it and be real honest about it. They know that they're slaves. They know what the world is. They know that male dominator Nazi scumbags own this place, essentially, physically, and threaten violence against people that don't pay their bosses. They know that the world is controlled by a big, gigantic mafia, ultimately run by occultists. They know deep down. They may not know it at a conscious level, but they know it at a subconscious level, and they know they're slaves in this prison. They get it. They really get it. But you know what it is? They have no courage. They're cowards. And you know what? That's the lowest form of life there is. And that's why I have to partially agree with the dark occultists of this world. The people who act like that and don't have any courage and don't have any will, they deserve what happens to them. And I said it right there. There it's said. Okay? It is said. And I don't care who disagrees. Disagree all you want. There are people with will in this world that are acting as they say they're going to act. They're acting in accordance with how they think and feel. And you know what? That's unity consciousness. And it doesn't matter whether it's dark unity consciousness. We have talked about this on this show, and there are people who will violently disagree with this principle. The universe does not care whether you come into unison in light or in darkness. It will respect unison. It's one of the hardest lessons anybody ever has to learn. You need to start getting over it, folks. The universe respects unity consciousness. The dominators of this world are all on the same page. The good people of the world, not on the same page, not even close. Those with good tendencies, I should say. They haven't really become truly good or truly awoken. They may say that they want to see good done. They may feel in their heart that there should be good done in the world, but do they really act it? Therefore, they're in opposition. They're not in unity consciousness. They're not in unison with themselves. And since they're torn apart, that dark force will continue to rule them. And that is a perfect example is taxation. How many people aren't paying taxes? How many people will refuse to work a job where taxes are withheld? How many people will refuse to go and do a job under an employee that's going to say, I'm going to withhold your taxes and pay it to the dominator Nazi thugs who think that they own you and who are enslaving you and believe they have the right to do it? Not many people. Well, you know what? I'll never pay you a dime, thug. Never. Never. You'll never get one dime out of me. Yeah, you could say, okay, taxes are added into things that you purchase, and that may be true. But you know what? I will never. No one will ever be given a number, a tax ID number. I'm not a number. I'm not a Social Security number. I don't have your number. Okay? You don't have my number. Okay? Because I'm out of your mind control garbage, crap, sewage. Okay? You're not ascribing a number to me and telling me I must accept it. I don't accept your number. Okay? Nor am I going to accept the fact that you're going to tell me I'm going to give you a certain amount of what I earn. Good luck getting it. The only thing you could possibly get is a lump of dead flesh. That's it. That's all you can get from me. You'll never have my compliance. You'll never have my cooperation. You'll never have a penny of support of anything that I make. With my labor, with the sweat of my brow. Ever. Get that. Know it. Know it like you know your name. Know it like you know your name. And yeah, there's anger here, folks. Yes. And it's justifiable anger. Truly justifiable anger. Not false justifications. Anger can be a very positive emotion. And the New Age movement, which we talked about, that wants to hijack everything and get people not to take any real action in the world, they want to tell you should never experience anger, and it's nonsense. When you're seeing things in the world that are completely unjust and are completely morally wrong, anger is the correct response. Then you got to take it a step beyond that and help people to understand what's really going on. By studying it yourself to a point where you can convey it to the ignorant. And anybody that thinks taxation is not robbery, is not theft at the point of a gun, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You dwell in darkness. You don't understand right from wrong. That's all I can tell you. There's really no other way of putting it. If you don't understand that telling somebody else, I'm going to take this much, and I don't care what it's for, okay? You can say, oh, it does things for people. Okay, wonderful. If it's voluntary, go for it. But once you introduce coercion at the threat of violence, that's morally wrong. The end. And I don't care what you're doing it for. I don't care if it's the most altruistic reason on the face of the earth. See, what natural law, to understand natural law, what you need to do, and I've said this before, you need to understand the world as if it's only you and another person. Imagine if there's only you and one other person in the world. Would you have the right to say, look, you're over there, you live in that area, I'm over here, I live in that area, okay, and I got sick, I have an infection in my leg, I can't forage for food, okay, but I can still throw this spear, okay, and if you don't come and bring me food, I'm going to hobble over or crawl over to where you're at, and I'm going to put this spear through your heart if you don't give me half of what you have. Do you have the right under natural law to do that? You don't. You can ask someone to give of their own free will and their own accord, voluntarily, what they may have, but once you coerce it through the threat of violence, and see, this implies the knowledge of what violence is. People think that force and violence are the same thing, and this is another distinction I've made continuously on this show and will continue to make, because it's unclear in a lot of people's minds. Violence is the initiation of force that you don't have the right to take. So if I walk out onto the street, wait for the first person to come down my block and smash their face in with a crowbar, that's violence. I don't have the right to take that action. However, if I walk out on the street and someone pulls a weapon and says, give me your wallet, I have every right to hit him in the face with a crowbar. That's called force, used when someone is under the threat of physical violence. So what is the distinction between the two? To anybody with a minimal amount of brain cells to rub together that's left in the world, the difference between the two is the initiation of the force and whether it was allowed to be taken under natural law. When someone initiates force by pulling out a weapon and saying, give me your wallet, they don't have the natural law right to take that. And therefore, they nullify their natural law right to be safe from force being used to thwart their attack of violence, the initiation of undue force. But that person who defends himself has every right to do so. And this is what the dominators, this is what the military, this is what the police want people to believe you don't have the right to take. When your rights are being violated, when you're being robbed, they want you to believe you must sit back and take it, because to stop somebody from physically violating your rights or forcibly confiscating something that belongs to you, you have no right to thwart that attack with force. And you know what? This is another thing the New Age movement wants you to believe in too. And you have every right to thwart that violence. Let's be real clear. That's what it is. That's what taxation is. It's violence. You need it said louder and clearer? I can do that. I have a real big mouth, a real powerful voice. It's violence. That's what it is. And if you don't think it is, you're wrong. The end. The end. I honestly really don't even care what you think about it. Because it is a specific thing, and if you don't understand that it is that thing, you're just wrong. That's all. I'm saying that openly, and whoever gets offended by that, I don't care. Because the truth is the truth. You don't want to accept the truth, you don't want to understand the truth, that's on you. You're going to be held accountable for how you behave in that instance and in those circumstances. And quite frankly, I've said this before on the show, I'm done with the tact. I don't want to have any tact. I'm through trying to get through to people by baby spoon feeding them. There ain't no time for that, folks. You don't understand you live in a police state, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't understand that you're under, essentially, the nation is under mind control akin to Nazi Germany. If you can't recognize that at this point, I don't know what to tell you. The reason people don't come out of it isn't because they don't really understand it from an intuitive level. It's because they're cowards. And that's what happened in Nazi Germany, folks. The people who refused to say no were cowards. That's why that happened. That's why Stalinist Russia happened. That's why every dictatorial regime happens and populations get culled, because their populations became cowards at some point. And look, that's what happens. Coward begins with the word cow, and cows get led to the slaughter. And here's the tagline for the show, folks. Get as offended about it as you like. Get as offended about it as you like. This show is about hardcore, uncomfortable truths that very few people will even say publicly to any other living being, let alone on a radio show that they're posting for the world to hear. And you can say anything you want about me, because this ain't about me. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. But I'll tell you one thing I'm not. I'm not a coward. And I won't go down like a coward. I, for one, am not going quietly into the darkness. Caller from California, you're on What on Earth is Happening.
Hey, Mark, it's not actually California, it's Kevin once again.
Kev, what's up, man? I don't know why that keeps coming up, California. I guess, like you said, it's the routing, but that's fine. Yeah. Kevin from Philadelphia, what's up, my friend?
Well, I just wanted to mention, I've been listening to your show since it started tonight, and I keep hearing things that I want to just kind of interject along the way. And one of them was, you had mentioned a long time ago, I forget exactly the type of word that you used to describe it, but I believe Barb had had known it, but you had mentioned how there is a one, all, full, complete, total, rolling state, pretty much controlling the entire planet, and that was like this one political party called the Nazis, spelled Notsees.
That's right. Those who cannot see.
Correct, yes. I just thought that was something that I felt like you were like missing, not saying during all of this, and
right.
and I'm totally in agreement with where you're at. And first off, actually, I want to throw out there that my condolences for your multiple losses, and even more
Thank
so
you.
for the suffering you had to go through at the religious ceremonies. I personally believe that religion is kind of meant to keep the poor from killing the rich. That's a personal feeling that it was always entrained in them, because realistically there are other ideas out there that do not get the same value, all things considered.
It's a leash around their neck. I mean,
Yeah.
Let's be honest. That's what religion is. It's a leash around the neck of the pets of the so-called elite. And it's right in the word, folks. If we get down to the meaning of words, we'll understand what words actually are saying to us subconsciously. The word religion means to hold back. That's what a leash does. A leash holds someone back around their neck, and that's what the word religion means.
And there was this other thing that I've noticed that in a lot of films, they take ideas that would be really good to get out to the world, and then they make them seem really absurd by putting them in, say, a movie like Batman and having the Joker burn that pile of money. Well, realistically, there's a lot of thought behind that. He may have acted like this wild dog, but the idea of burning all that money is a serious act of aggression, as far as I'm concerned, against the Federal Reserve. And to process that in a fashion that makes it look like it's a crazy idea is to link it back to with where I'm going with this, with the religion statement I just made about how it keeps from killing the rich. There was an idea thrown out in the Addams Family movie where Morticia is talking to Uncle Fester saying, "We gladly feast on those who would subdue us." Not just pretty
right.
words, but as an Addams, you understand completely, don't you?
Right.
And there is something to that. Like there is like that whole idea of give me liberty or give me death is kind of missing in today's society. We have become this whole, specifically in America, no longer the land of the free, but to do as we tell you, and no longer the home of the brave, but okay, it's condition orange now. Let's all be afraid of the terrorists.
Right. The school system is a big part of that entrainment. Religion is a big part of that entrainment. What people eat is a big part of that entrainment. Vaccinations is a big part of that entrainment. Who knows what long-term effects things like that have on the brain. And that's what it's all about. It's about stunting someone. The most painful thing about these funerals this week was not that people had died. It was seeing the stunted state that the people in my family who are still alive dwell in. That's what was the most painful thing. I didn't look at the dead, the really, truly, physically dead, as the ones who needed any pity or mercy. It was the people who were alive in my family, seeing adult people that are stunted emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Their children, they're 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old children. That's what they have done to the people of this country through television, through vaccination, through the school system, through the food. It's unbelievable. You have to stand back and marvel at it practically. And I like the point you brought up about what you talked about when you brought up the word Nazi. It isn't just a political party, meaning the National Socialist German Workers' Party. When we say the word in English, Nazi, N-A-Z-I, which is how we write the anagram Okay? It means not see, to not see, to not be aware of, to be spiritually blind. And this is called green language. We've talked about this a little bit on the show. We'll get into it more as the weeks go on, but this is called alchemical green language. And no one has to plan this. This doesn't have to be formally structured by anybody. Okay? It works out that way synchromystically. And Kevin, I know you know a little bit about synchromysticism. Okay?
Yes,
it works out that way in the language, because the language is like the living expression of the collective consciousness. And the words that we speak work out to tell us things in certain ways. So when we say the word Nazi, we're saying not to see. Notsee, not see. And that's not accidental. Not accidental.
No, it's like this dark, repressive, evil version of Namaste.
Right.
It's like this inverted version of Namaste, as far as I can see it. Like, that's just the kind of the allegory that I, again, have come up with on my own, just in thinking about all this. I see, like, Namaste has always been about this, like, honoring the other person that you see in that other, you honor yourself in that other person, your spirit, your true spirit, like the one that's truly divine, not just this corporeal form, but like everything about a person's freedom and about their divine right to exist on their own and not be either coerced or taken for granted even.
That's a phenomenal way of putting it, Kevin. It's so simple. The golden rule is so simple, and how people completely miss it is beyond me. You want to exist and be free and have the right to live your life without coercion, yet you won't grant that to someone else. And this is what a cop does every day when he puts that uniform on and agrees to go and take something from somebody because they refuse to pay a tribute to his master. This is what the people who are going and fighting illegal wars of aggression over resources in foreign lands are doing when they put that uniform on, and they want to always say the same thing, and it's always the same justification. I had no choice. I needed to do it. I needed the money. I needed to pay for my family. I needed to work my way through school. Nonsense. Nonsense. You can't be made to do anything that you truly don't want to do somewhere deep down in your heart, in your soul, in your spirit. That blackness has to exist somewhere in there for you to be so-called compelled to do it, because no one's really compelling you. You have total control over your own thoughts, your own emotions, and your own actions at all time. And anybody that says otherwise is lying. They're lying, and they're a coward. They're lying because they do not need to do that. Nobody is making your muscles contract and hit somebody in the head. Nobody is making your hand squeeze the trigger. You are making the choice to do that. And this is what people don't want. They don't want the responsibility brought firmly home where it belongs upon the individual. That individual is
exactly to the self. If the actual person doesn't confront the darkness within them, they are going to be forever subject to it.
That's right. And apparently, these people love it. I don't know. I just get the sense that people love this. They love the state of this world. They love dwelling in the ignorance that they dwell in. I mean, they have no desire to crawl up out of this morass of consciousness that dwells all around them. They seemingly have no desire to better themselves in any way. At least people around me don't. I don't know what
Derek
it's like.
Jensen calls it the exploiter dominator culture.
Right.
And essentially
like
they are all
syndrome.
exactly
it's like Stockholm.
Exactly. They're in and even people that are at the bottom of this exploiter dominator culture that are being exploited, they don't realize, they don't understand that instead of gunning for a balanced, fair society and working towards that, they instead just want to climb the ladder so that they can then become the oppressors of others. It's so
Right.
sad.
They want to play the same game that has them enslaved, thinking that they're going to come out on top of it as the winner, not understanding, as was put forth in the Divine Comedy by Dante, Satan himself is encased in ice at the center of hell. That even the dominator at the top of the food chain, so to speak, is also tormented and is also kept back from what he wants the most. He loves the heat. He puts everybody in that, yet he's encased in a block of ice. It's the big joke on everybody. Even at the top, you're still enslaved, because the force is what is enslaving people. It is not anything there is no highest level of it in the physical domain. The highest level of it in the physical domain is still enslaved by the force of fear and negativity. And they don't understand that. Yet they want to aspire to be like Big Daddy. They want to aspire to be like the father who beats the mother, because they look at that as the stronger position of the two. It's so loathsome. It's so loathsome, and it only happens with people that really refuse to look at themselves, refuse to understand anything about the self, refuse to delve down into the matters of spirit. They don't want to understand anything about anything higher than the lowly physical domain, because that's their God. They worship Mammon. They worship the only God of this world, and that's that dollar bill. That's it. I've said it many times that name is extremely important when you study all the mythological cultures of the ancient world. Bill, Bel, Baal, the bull. That's the dark, evil god of the world. It's all based upon that name, and they named the dollar bill after it. And they named big secret societies after it, like the Bilderberg Group. The highest satanic holiday is called Beltane. It goes on and on. We'll get into some of the symbolism when we talk about the occult in coming weeks. In a few weeks' time, I'll be breaking out a lot of information about occult traditions, and we'll be getting into symbolism and analyzing symbolism in meticulous detail. Because to understand some of the events of the world, we have to understand symbolism as well. And green language is a big part of that. So I thank you for bringing that up to the listeners' attention. The whole green language of Nazi, N-A-Z-I, and Nazi, N-O-T-S-E-E, not to Nazi. Kev, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. And
keep up the great work, because somebody needs to say this to people. And Gautier said boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So don't let those guys get you down, really. Keep up what you're doing. You're an agent of evolution. Keep up the good work, please.
Kev, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. You have a good night, man.
You too.
All right. So it is difficult, and it is maddening sometimes. And, I can tend to get a little bit emotional and let that out. I kind of vowed I wasn't going to get so crazy that I'd be sounding like Alex Jones on this show. Not that I don't like Alex. I think what he's doing is important too. But, sometimes you need to vent. Caller from Southeast Pennsylvania, you are on. What on earth is happening? Welcome. What do you have for us?
Hi, Mark. It's Chris from New Jersey. How are you?
Chris, how you doing, man? Good hearing from you.
Good, Mark. Mark, listen. One thing that struck me. I keep remembering hearing you say the truth is always simple, and I've come to that understanding. And that's how I try to figure things out now. I keep things simple. The book you referenced a while back called "The End of All Evil" by Jeremy Locke.
Yes.
The book's about as simple as it gets, and you can't get it at Amazon. You can't buy it there. I find that very interesting. It's the only book I've ever tried to get at Amazon and couldn't find on Amazon.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chris. Chris, I'll tell you what. Listen, what I'll do is, and I usually don't do this on the show, but I'll make an exception in this case because I think this book is so critical, okay? I do have a PDF electronic copy of the book, okay? I'll post that on the site, and if the author has a problem with that, he can email me and I'll take it down from my site. But being that you mentioned that this week and how many concepts connected with the topics of the show for this week and in past weeks that book deals with, I'll post an electronic copy that people can read on their computer or on their mobile device like an iPad or a Kindle, or they could print. So I'll post that on the site for this podcast. It'll be podcast number 28, and I'll put that in as a related document. But continue what you were going to say about the book, but you can look for that on my site.
I think for people to understand, I think most of your audience hopefully understands or is starting to understand. The way you find the truth is you keep it simple. They want to make it confusing and getting you going down these dead ends.
Yes.
Just keep it simple. I basically boiled down the rest of my life to this. I'm going to do the right thing for the right reason. That's simple, and that's how I'm going to live the rest of my life. And
right.
That's how I see it. There's no need to make it all complicated and go searching for secret societies and all that stuff, because the real secret that I've found over the last year and a half is that there's real power in believing. So what we give our energy to, we give life to, in a sense. So it's very important that we be careful as to what we partake in. Like you say, going to church. My mom goes to church religiously all the time. And I asked her about a month ago, I said, the Catholic Church is sitting on the sideline while all this immorality takes place. And the reason you get, if you ask the priest, is, well, we'll lose our 501c tax status, and we'll have to pay taxes. I said to my mom, I said, look, this is a woman who's gone to church for as long as I've been alive. I said to her, well, is that what Jesus would say? Would Jesus say to whoever, Pontius Pilate, whoever it was, well, we're gonna do it your way because we don't want to lose our tax status? And right at that moment, it's crystal clear that it's all a fraud, and yet my mom doesn't really recognize that. I think she comes to that, the thinking, well, little old me, there's nothing I can do about it. Well, we have to stop that, because if a whole bunch of us, make the decision to make a stand, we'll change the world. But if none of us do, we're going to do exactly what happened in Germany. We're going to sit there and watch the atrocities happen. And, once one atrocity happens, it makes the next one more likely, because, one coward begets another coward. Before you know it, humanity is suffering on, an unbelievable scale.
Understanding the difference between right and wrong, and then living that way. It is about understanding the difference between right and wrong, what we have the moral right to do, what we do not have the moral right to do under natural law, and then living in harmony with those principles. And that is what the book, The End of All Evil, discusses in a very simple way, in a way that puts it in a way that most people can understand from the perspective of very simple language. That's what struck me as so valuable about that book, and why I quoted it on the air, and why I think so many people would benefit from reading that book. Now, that being said, I have attempted to lend that book to some family members and friends, and you'd just be surprised. The people are so scatterbrained, and their attention span is so destroyed anymore that people literally can't sit down and read a 90-page book. 90 pages of large type. People have a hard time sitting down even for a few hours, quieting their minds and taking in a little bit of information. You can read a 90-page book and print it in fairly large type in a few hours, even if you're a slow reader. I'm not the world's fastest reader. Again, I've said that before on the show. I'm a voracious reader, but I'm not nearly as fast of a reader as I would like to be. I have to power through books and use will to get through them. I retain what I read, but I don't read very quickly. I'd like to improve that. But even for a slow reader, you could read a 90-page book in a few hours. Caller from Southwest Ohio, you are on. What on earth is happening? Oh.
as we move
Caller, are you there?
forward in this consciousness,